I never thought a single moment could change everything. I suppose none of us do, really. It was just an ordinary afternoon in late July, hot, sticky, the kind of day where the air feels heavy and restless. I had just finished folding laundry, watching the sky darken through the window and thinking, looks like another summer storm. Nothing unusual, just thunderclouds rolling in like they always do in our part of Georgia. My name is Elizabeth, but most people call me Beth. I'm a mother of 2 grown children, a nurse for over 20 years, and a woman who always believed in science, order, and what could be explained. Or at least, I used to. That day, I was alone. My husband was away on business, and the kids were both off living their own lives. I remember feeling a little lonely, maybe a little nostalgic. I'd just made myself some iced tea and stepped out onto the back porch to breathe in the smell of the coming rain. There was something about it. Fresh, earthy, almost electric. And then the sky cracked. I heard the thunder before I saw the flash, but it was close. Close enough to make me jump. I turned to go back inside, but then, I don't know how to explain it. There was a blinding light. Not just white. It was searing, golden, like every color and no color all at once. And then, silence. No pain. No noise. Just stillness. I don't remember falling. I don't remember hitting the ground. I don't even remember being afraid. 1 second, I was standing on the porch. The next, I was somewhere else entirely. But before I tell you what I saw, what I experienced, you need to understand who I was. I wasn't a spiritual person. I believed in being kind, in doing good, in loving my family with everything I had. But I didn't go to church often. And when people talked about visions or the afterlife, I smiled politely, kept quiet. It felt distant. Not false exactly, but not real for me. That all changed in an instant. Later, I'd find out I'd been struck directly by lightning. My neighbors saw it happen. They said I flew backward, my body convulsing before I hit the deck. I was clinically dead for over 4 minutes. No heartbeat, no breath, no awareness. But I was aware. Oh, I was more alive than I had ever been. In those first moments after the strike, it was as if something inside me snapped loose, like my soul was finally free from the weight it had carried for years. I didn't see my body. Not yet. I didn't see anything, really. Just a vast, endless space. But I felt it. Every part of it. Every vibration. Every soundless whisper. Every shimmer of what I can only describe as love. There was no fear. No confusion. Just a knowing. A deep, peaceful certainty that I was no longer in the world I knew. And that something, someone, was waiting for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That storm wasn't just about weather. It was the beginning of something sacred, something terrifying, and something that would change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what lies beyond. And it all started with a bolt from the heavens. I used to think lightning was just a force of nature, random, chaotic, dangerous. But what struck me that day didn't feel random. It felt purposeful, like it had been waiting for me, like it knew. The moment the bolt hit, my entire world vanished. Not slowly, not gently, instantly. Like someone had flipped a cosmic switch. There was no sound, no body, no porch, no sky. Just stillness. A deep, pure silence that didn't scare me. It embraced me. And then, I realized something that shook me to my core. I was still me. I didn't have eyes, but I could see. I didn't have ears, but I could hear. I didn't have a body, but I was there, fully aware, floating in something that felt like space, but warmer, more alive. The best way I can describe it is like being held in a loving thought, suspended in peace, yet surrounded by infinite depth. That's when I saw it. My body. It was lying on the deck, twisted awkwardly, smoke rising faintly from my chest. My hair was singed, and there was a dark scorch mark along my collarbone. It was surreal, watching people run from next door, screaming my name, trying to wake me up. I wanted to tell them I was fine. I was right there, but no one could hear me. At first, I panicked. I tried to reach out, tried to move, to scream, but nothing came. And yet I felt no fear. Something or someone was calming me from the inside out. Like an invisible presence was wrapping me in reassurance, whispering without words, "You're not alone. You're safe. Just let go." And I did. The moment I stopped fighting, I began to rise, not just upward, but inward, like being pulled toward the very center of love itself. The space around me changed. What was once empty became full of light, color, and what I can only call music, though it was unlike any melody I've ever heard. It wasn't just sound. It was feeling. The music moved through me, filling every crack of sorrow, every fear, every ache I had carried for decades. As I floated higher, I began to remember things, not just from my own life, but truths that felt ancient, eternal. I understood that I wasn't just Elizabeth. I was more. I was part of something vast and divine, a spark from a fire too beautiful to comprehend. And I remembered that I had always known this. We all know it, somewhere deep inside, but we forget when we're born. The colors around me pulsed with meaning, rich golds, deep blues, soft pinks, and they spoke, not in words, but in understanding. They told me I was on a journey home, that I had lived well, that nothing I had done was wasted, that every moment of love, every tear, every small act of kindness had been seen, cherished. And then I felt it, a presence. It wasn't a man or a woman. It didn't have a face, but it was more real than anything I had ever known. It was God, or whatever name you choose. Not the figure from stained glass windows, not the voice of judgment, but an overwhelming, infinite being of love. A presence so powerful and gentle that I wept without tears. I knew it knew me, every part of me, and loved me completely. And it spoke, not with words, with truth, but what it revealed, what I saw next, was so vast, so staggering, so terrifyingly beautiful that I hesitate even now to speak of it. I saw the fabric of existence. But before I go on, I want to say something. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt alone, or wondered if your pain mattered, please know this. You are seen. You are loved. You have never been alone. Not for a single breath. If this story touches you, if you want more people to hear this message, please consider subscribing and sharing. This is more than just a story. It's a message for all of us. If this content touches you in any way, please like, subscribe, and comment to help with engagement and help this video reach more people. Now let's continue the story. There's something incredibly humbling about seeing yourself from the outside. Your body, the shell you've known all your life, lying lifeless and still. I hovered above it, watching as paramedics rushed into the backyard, shouting commands, performing CPR, placing defibrillator pads on my chest. My neighbor Janine was crying, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. She kept saying, "Please come back, Beth. Please don't go." But I wasn't there anymore. Not really. What I felt was freedom. Not like escaping, not like running from anything, but like finally breathing after being underwater for too long. Every ache, every tightness, every worry that had ever wrapped around my bones. Gone. There was no weight. I wasn't floating like a balloon or flying like a bird. It was more like being everywhere at once, connected to everything, yet still distinctly me. I began to drift, not in space, but through a kind of veil. The colors around me deepened, shifting from the brilliant gold and pinks into something more silvery, translucent, and soft. I was moving through a tunnel, yes, but not a dark, narrow one. This was expansive, like the inside of a star. There was light at the far end, pulsing with warmth, calling me forward not with urgency, but with welcome. As I moved, I began to feel the presence of others. They weren't strangers. They were familiar. I don't know how I knew it, but I felt them, souls I had known, loved, and lost. My grandmother, who had passed when I was just 13, was the first to appear. She didn't look old, sick, or frail like when she died. She was radiant, glowing with a light that came from within. She smiled at me. Oh, that smile. And I felt everything I had ever missed in her arms again. Then came my father. He had died from a heart attack when I was in my 20s. He was taller than I remembered, stronger, and yet his eyes were exactly the same. Kind, gentle. He didn't speak, but his eyes said it all. I'm proud of you. I've been with you every step of the way. And then, a soul I never met in this life. A small child. A girl. I instinctively knew. She was mine. Years ago, I had lost a pregnancy early. I'd cried, grieved silently, and moved on the best I could. But here she was, whole, radiant, holding out her hand to me with a love that melted every sorrow I'd ever buried. She called me Mama, without words, and I understood. No love is ever lost. No connection ever broken. These beings, these family of the soul, walked with me through that radiant veil. We didn't talk, not the way we do here. It was all feeling, emotion, knowing, and every step brought me closer to the presence I had sensed before, closer to a realm of such peace and light that even now, words fail. I began to see structures, or what my mind interpreted as structures. They weren't physical buildings, but forms made of light and thought, vibrating with a frequency that felt like home. There were gardens of indescribable color, music in the very air, and rivers of light that flowed not with water, but with memory, joy, and truth. I realized I was no longer bound by time. I could see my entire life stretched out like a tapestry, moments I had long forgotten shimmering alongside the ones I treasured. Every act of kindness I had ever given or received was like a bead of light on this fabric. Every moment of pain, soothed and woven into something greater. And just as I felt ready to step into the full brilliance of that light, everything paused. A figure emerged. Not like my loved ones. Not human. It radiated with such clarity, such immense authority and compassion, that I immediately knew. This is my guide. I didn't need introductions. We had known each other forever. They gently touched my essence. Not my hand, but the core of who I was. And everything changed. There is more I must show you, they conveyed. What came next shook the foundation of everything I thought I understood about life, death, and God. The presence beside me radiated a calm that seemed to pulse in perfect harmony with the very fabric of the universe. My guide, neither male nor female, neither young nor old, stood as a being of sheer light and wisdom. There was no need for questions. They knew everything I wanted to ask before the thought even formed. There was no judgment in their gaze, only an eternal, compassionate understanding. As we moved forward, I felt the last remnants of the physical world dissolve behind me. No more gravity, no more noise, no more sense of separation. Just connection. Everything felt alive. Everything. Even the space between things shimmered with intelligence. I remember thinking, this is what it means to truly be awake. We passed through what looked like a curtain of light, so bright it should have blinded me. But it didn't hurt. In fact, it felt like being embraced by something I'd been missing all my life. On the other side, the world opened into something I still struggled to describe. It wasn't a place. It was a state of being. But my mind saw it as a breathtaking landscape, one tailored perfectly to soothe and welcome me. Imagine a valley where every blade of grass sings, where the trees glow from within, and the sky isn't just above you, it's part of you. Colors I'd never seen on Earth danced before my eyes, shifting with the music of the air itself. There was a warmth that penetrated not just the skin, but the soul. It wasn't hot. It was pure. I felt known, deeply and completely known, by every inch of that place. And then, my guide showed me a vision. We stood above what I can only describe as a kind of river, wide and flowing with shimmering currents of light and sound. But instead of water, it carried memories, moments from my life, moments from others' lives, woven together in a tapestry of unimaginable complexity and beauty. I could see how one act of kindness from my childhood rippled across years, touching people I never met. Everything you do matters, the guide said, not in words, but in truth that rang through me like a bell. I saw strangers I had helped during my time as a nurse, patients I had comforted, families I had consoled. Even small things, like a smile I gave a grieving woman in a grocery store, appeared in glowing echoes across the fabric of reality. But I also saw my mistakes, not to be shamed, but to understand. I watched moments where I'd hurt others, even unintentionally, and I felt their pain as if it were my own. Not to punish, but to awaken empathy within me. It was never about guilt, it was about growth. And through it all, the presence of God was constant, gentle, patient, loving. I turned to my guide and asked, not with my voice, but with my being, why me? Why did I come here this way? Their answer filled me with awe. You were ready to remember, and others are ready to hear. It was then I knew. This wasn't just a gift. It was a responsibility. I was shown a place I can only describe as the Hall of Truth, a vast crystalline chamber where souls gathered in communion. It wasn't a church or a temple, but it radiated holiness. The walls shimmered with scenes of earth, wars and peace, birth and death, joy and sorrow, all seen through a lens of divine compassion. And at the center, a radiant light pulsed, as if it were the heartbeat of all existence. That, the guide said, is the source, the origin, what you call God. I fell to my knees, not in fear but in reverence. Not because I had to, but because every part of me wanted to. I felt the light enter me, not just around me but through me, filling every shadow of doubt, every wound I had ever carried. And then, I heard the voice, not like thunder, not like a whisper, but like home. It said only this: you are loved, you are mine, and you must return. I had always imagined that standing before God would feel terrifying, like facing a judge, exposed in all my flaws, waiting to hear whether I was good enough. But nothing could have prepared me for what it was really like. The presence that filled the chamber was more than light. It was everything. It was warmth and love and power beyond words. It was vast enough to contain galaxies, yet intimate enough to know the secret aches I had never spoken aloud. There was no form, no throne, no face, but I knew. Every part of my being knew. I was in the presence of the Creator, and the first thing I felt was home, not judgment, not shame, not even awe in the way we use that word here. It was something deeper, like my soul recognized its origin, like I had returned to the source from which all life flows. The light wrapped around me, within me, and began to show me things, not as a slideshow or a series of scenes, but as a knowing that unfolded inside my spirit like the petals of a flower. I saw my life, yes, but from a divine perspective. Not just the moments I was proud of, but the ones I had buried in regret. Words spoken in anger, kindnesses withheld, people I'd ignored in their pain. But instead of feeling condemned, I felt understood. Like God was showing me, yes, you could have loved better, but look at how far you've come. And then came the flood of love. It didn't come in waves. It came in everything. In sound, in color, in memory, in feeling. It was like being filled from the inside out with the truth that I had never been alone, that I had always been seen, that even in my worst moments when I thought no one cared, He had been there, holding me, weeping with me, waiting for me. I was shown moments from childhood when I cried alone in my room, and I saw Him there, beside me, His presence invisible to my earthly eyes, but now so clear. I was shown the day my father died, the pain I buried, the anger I carried, and I felt His arms around me even then. I saw the moments I'd questioned Him, doubted His existence, even cursed His silence, and He never once turned away. Instead, He said, "You are my child, and I have never stopped loving you." I don't know how long I stood in that presence. There was no time, only eternity, only now. I could have stayed forever, and part of me wanted to. Every earthly care had vanished. Every worry, every fear, every scar on my heart was being healed by a love more complete than I ever knew existed. But then, something shifted. God began to show me others. Faces I didn't recognize. People from different countries, different lives, different times. Each one connected to me by threads of light, Some were people I had helped without knowing it. Some were people I had hurt and needed to forgive or be forgiven by. Some were souls I had known in past lifetimes, bonded by a love that transcended this one life. I began to understand. We are all woven together. Every life touches another. Every act of love echoes into eternity. Every word, every thought, every choice. It all matters. And then a vision of Earth appeared. Not the physical globe, but its spiritual counterpart. A glowing, pulsing field of life and energy, beautiful and bruised, full of hope and sorrow and longing. I saw the prayers of billions rising like streams of light, the tears of widows, the laughter of newborns, the violence and the healing, all intertwined. And I heard God's voice again, not loud, but undeniable. Will you go back? There are hearts that need your story. I hesitated. I didn't want to leave this love. How could I? But then I saw my children. I saw their future without me. I saw people watching this very video, you, weeping in the dark, wondering if there's more. And I knew I couldn't stay. Not yet. With a heart full of light and tears I didn't yet know how to cry, I answered, yes, I'll go back. But please, don't let me forget this love. And so began the journey back to the world I thought I'd left behind. What God revealed to me wasn't a list of rules or a divine lecture. It was a knowing, downloaded into the deepest part of who I am. It came not in words, but in flashes of understanding, in layers of truth so vast, I'm still unraveling them. The first revelation was simple, yet profound. We are not human beings trying to be spiritual. We are spiritual beings experiencing humanity. I understood then that we come to Earth not as punishment, but as a sacred opportunity. Every hardship, every joy, every loss and love, it's all part of a soul's growth. Earth is like a school for the heart, and while the lessons can be painful, they're always meaningful. I saw suffering in a new light. I had always asked, why does God allow pain? But there, in that realm, I saw pain differently, not as cruelty, but as a teacher. Not that God sends it, but that our souls choose certain paths, certain experiences, to remember who we truly are, to learn compassion, to break our hearts open, not apart. I was shown that every soul is unique, precious, and irreplaceable, that no one is ever truly lost. When someone dies, their essence remains close, and those we love are never far. They're still connected to us, just in a different form. I saw threads of light stretching between souls across dimensions, unbroken, eternal. God showed me the ripple effect of love. I was given a vision, a young woman in a grocery store, weeping silently by the canned goods aisle. No one noticed her, except one elderly man who smiled, nodded, and said, "You're not alone." That single moment changed her. It gave her strength not to end her life that night. I saw how she went on to become a nurse, how she held a dying child's hand, how that child's mother later started a foundation that helped thousands, all because of one small act of kindness. And then came another revelation. There is no such thing as insignificant. Every prayer whispered in the dark, every choice to forgive, every tear shed in quiet longing, it all matters. It all becomes part of the divine fabric. Nothing is wasted. I was shown how souls plan their lives before birth, how we choose families, challenges, even relationships, not because we want to suffer, but because we long to grow, and because love, in its purest form, wants to experience itself through every possible shade. I saw how we each carry wounds, and how those wounds, once healed, become gifts to others. I understood that our greatest pain often becomes our greatest purpose, that what breaks us also opens us to something bigger, softer, more sacred. I asked in the stillness, why do we forget all this when we're born? And the answer was clear, because remembering is part of the journey. Love is not just a destination, it's the path. The revelations came like waves, gentle, yet overwhelming, that we are never alone, that those who cross over still walk beside us, that life continues in layers beyond layers, always held within the arms of God. And then I was shown the power of choice. We are never forced, not by heaven, not by God, not by fate. We are always invited. Even in our darkest hour, even in our anger and doubt and grief, we are still free. Free to choose love, free to return to the light, free to become who we were always meant to be. That freedom is sacred, and God honors it, even when we don't understand. The final revelation was personal, but I believe it's meant for everyone listening. You are enough. You have always been enough. You are seen. You are deeply, eternally loved. Nothing can separate you from that love. Not death, not mistakes, not fear, not time. When I woke up in that hospital bed, I didn't remember everything at once. But this never left me. And if you're watching now, feeling lost or broken or tired of trying, I want you to know, you're not alone. You are more than you think. And you are so, so loved. The word judgment used to terrify me. I imagined a throne, a gavel, maybe a booming voice reading off my sins like a divine ledger. I feared being exposed, shamed, or cast aside. But what actually happened was the opposite of everything I had ever feared. It didn't feel like a courtroom. It felt like a reunion, with truth, with myself, with the purest form of love. My guide brought me to what I can only describe as a place of light, an open, radiant field filled with a sense of infinite peace. There was no roof, no walls, but somehow it felt sacred, like a cathedral of the soul. In that space, I felt completely safe, not because I had done everything right, but because I knew that nothing I was about to see would separate me from God's love. And then, my life began to unfold. It wasn't like watching a movie. It was more like reliving every moment, big and small, from birth to the instant before the lightning struck. But here's the part that changed me forever. I didn't just see what I had done. I felt what others felt because of me. I saw myself as a child, comforting a crying friend on the playground, and I felt her relief, her gratitude, her deep sense of not being alone. I saw myself as a nurse, holding the hand of a man dying of cancer, and I felt his fear ease just from my presence. But then came the harder moments. I saw times I was impatient with my children, moments when I let my pride close my heart to my husband. I saw myself walking past a homeless man without even making eye contact, and in each of those moments, I felt the sting, not as punishment, but as understanding. I felt their pain, their loneliness, their longing to be seen. It was heartbreaking, not because I was condemned, but because for the first time, I could see the impact of every choice, every word, every silence. And yet, through it all, I never once felt judged. I felt held, loved, guided. I turned to my guide, overwhelmed with sorrow, and asked, "Why didn't I do better? I knew better." And the guide replied, not in words, but in a wave of warmth and clarity, "You were learning, and even your mistakes became part of your purpose." That broke something open in me. I realized then, this wasn't judgment as the world defines it. This was clarity. This was the soul finally seeing without distortion, without ego, without fear. It was the truth, but wrapped in mercy. I was also shown the intentions behind my actions, the times I did the right thing, but for the wrong reasons, and the times I failed on the outside, but was growing on the inside. God sees all of it, not just the outcomes, but the struggle, the heart, the effort. I was allowed to forgive myself in that place, deeply, fully, and that was perhaps the most healing moment of all, because if God could look at every part of me, the beautiful and the broken, and still say, "You are mine," then who was I to keep punishing myself? I wept, not out of guilt, but out of release. Decades of shame and unworthiness washed away in a river of compassion. I want to say this to anyone watching who carries guilt. Let it go. God does not keep score the way we do. Your soul is not defined by your worst day or your hardest moment. You are a work in progress, deeply loved every step of the way. That life review didn't diminish me. It restored me. It made me want to return to Earth and love more intentionally, speak more kindly, listen more deeply. Because I had seen, the real judgment isn't about punishment, it's about truth. And truth, when seen through the eyes of God, becomes grace. I don't know how long I stood in that realm of light, surrounded by love, clarity, and the overwhelming peace that flowed from God's very being. There is no time there, at least not in the way we know it on Earth, but eventually, a question began to rise inside me. It wasn't asked with pressure or urgency. It was more like a sacred invitation, whispered through the stillness. Will you return? At first I didn't want to, not out of fear or selfishness, but because I had never known such peace. There was no pain here, no grief, no confusion. The weight I had carried for so long, my worries, regrets, loneliness, it had all dissolved in this realm of perfect understanding. Here, I was whole. I thought of my family, my children, my husband. I saw their faces, their lives continuing on without me. I saw my daughter sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching my photograph. I saw my son trying to be strong, pretending not to miss me. My husband, wandering the kitchen late at night, reaching for a mug he would never again hand to me. And then I saw something else. I saw the ripple effect of my return. It was as if God was showing me two paths, one in which I stayed in this luminous realm, and one in which I returned to Earth. And in the path where I came back, I saw people gathered around their phones and computers, watching me tell this story. I saw tears falling down cheeks, hearts softening, lives realigning. I saw healing. Your pain will not be in vain, God whispered. Your voice will carry the light, I asked with my soul trembling. But how do I go back? How can I leave this? How can I bear the weight of that world again? And God, in His infinite mercy, answered not with promises of ease, but with the gift of purpose. You will remember what matters. You will walk with love, and you will never be alone. I turned to my guide who had been beside me in silence. Their light pulsed gently, like the rhythm of breath. They didn't try to convince me. They simply waited, honoring the sacredness of my decision. That's what struck me most, the respect. In this place, nothing is forced. There is no coercion, only invitation, only love. I was allowed to choose. I looked once more at the light, the warmth, the unending serenity, and then I looked toward Earth, a world of chaos, of sorrow, of beauty and mess and mystery, and I whispered with my entire soul, yes, I will go back. For them. The moment I chose, something within me shifted. The light began to fold around me, not pushing me out, but carrying me gently like a mother laying down her child. I felt myself being pulled, slowly at first, then with more speed, back through the tunnel, through layers of light and energy and sensation. But before I left, one final truth was placed in my heart. You are never returning to the life you left. You are returning with new eyes, and you will carry the memory of this love in everything you do. The descent was not easy. The farther I fell from the light, the heavier I felt. My spirit began to squeeze back into the small, broken body I had left behind. The weight of gravity returned. The noise. The pain. And then, I gasped. My chest rose. Machines beeped. Hands gripped mine. Voices shouted, "She's back! She's breathing!" And just like that, I was in the hospital, blinking against the harsh lights, tears running down my cheeks. Not from fear, but from the loss of that heavenly place. But deep inside, something had changed. I had chosen to return. And I knew why. For you. For everyone still walking through the darkness, wondering if there is more. There is. And I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. And love never lets go. Waking up in the hospital was like crashing into a world I no longer belonged to. The light was too bright, but not the kind I had just left. It was artificial, sterile, cold. My body felt foreign, heavy like stone. Every muscle screamed. My chest burned where the defibrillator pads had been placed. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. But I was alive. Machines beeped around me in a rhythm I couldn't yet trust. I saw the silhouettes of nurses, doctors moving quickly. One of them leaned over and whispered, "She's back. My God, she came back." He sounded more awestruck than medical. I wanted to tell them everything. I wanted to scream that I had seen God, that love is real, that death is not the end. But my lips wouldn't form the words. My voice was gone. All I could do was weep, silently, slowly, as tears ran down the sides of my face and into the pillow. They thought I was crying from pain or confusion. I was crying from longing for the light, for the love, for the feeling of being completely known and completely safe. I had just been embraced by the creator of the universe, and now I was back in a body full of bruises and fear, tethered to tubes and monitors, surrounded by people who couldn't possibly understand what had just happened. The days that followed were blurry. Doctors came in and out. They said I'd been clinically dead for over 4 minutes. They couldn't explain how my heart restarted. They said it was rare, miraculous, even. I nodded, but inside I knew. It wasn't just rare. It was on purpose. The physical recovery was grueling. My muscles were weak. My nervous system was shaken. I had headaches, tremors, moments of dizziness that came without warning. But none of that compared to the emotional weight I carried, the ache of being back. For a while, I felt like a stranger in my own life. I looked in the mirror and saw the same face, but behind my eyes, something had changed forever. It was like trying to wear clothes that no longer fit. Conversations felt shallow. The news felt meaningless. Even the small talk with friends seemed distant. I started waking up at 3 a.m., sobbing for reasons I couldn't explain. I wasn't depressed. I was homesick. Homesick for a place that isn't on any map. Homesick for the presence that had filled me so completely I had forgotten what fear even was. But slowly, things began to shift. My family gathered around me. My daughter held my hand every day. My son brought flowers and asked gentle questions. My husband, who had flown home the moment he got the call, sat quietly beside me for hours, just watching me breathe. And one night, while they were asleep in the corner of the room, I whispered, "I came back for you." That's when I began to speak, to share bits and pieces of what I had seen. At first, they were cautious, unsure. But when they looked into my eyes, they believed me. Not because of my words, but because they could feel the truth in me. That's when I knew. I hadn't lost the connection to that place. It lived inside me now, like a flame tucked beneath my ribs, quiet but unquenchable. I began to write down everything I could remember, visions, feelings, words whispered in the light. I wrote not because I was afraid of forgetting, but because I couldn't keep it in. The story needed to be shared. The love needed to be passed on. And as I healed, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I realized something extraordinary. Though I missed the other side deeply, I was no longer afraid. Not of death, not of pain, not even of suffering. Because I had seen what waits on the other side, and I had brought a piece of that love back with me. Coming back from death doesn't make life easier, but it makes it deeper. It's been months now since the lightning, since I died, since I saw God, and not a single day has gone by that I don't feel changed. Sometimes in quiet ways, sometimes in ways that shake me to my core. People ask me all the time, what's it like to come back from something like that? And the truth is, I'm still learning how to answer. Some things, I suppose, are never meant to fit neatly into words. What I do know is this. My heart isn't the same. My eyes aren't the same. The way I speak to strangers, the way I hold my husband's hand, the way I pause to feel the sun on my skin, it's all different now, because I know what's waiting. And I know that this life, fragile, messy, unpredictable as it is sacred. I used to be in a hurry, always doing, achieving, worrying. Now I slow down. I listen. I forgive more quickly. I say, I love you every time I think it, not just when it feels convenient. I hold space for people who are grieving, not with platitudes, but with quiet presence, because I know what it means to long for someone who's gone. I visit the cemetery more often now, not out of sorrow, but out of reverence. I sit there and speak to souls who've crossed over. I no longer wonder if they hear me. They do. The fear of death is gone. Completely. Not because I believe in something better, but because I've seen it. I've felt it. Death is not the end. It's not the closing of a door. It's a return. A homecoming. A reunion with a love so perfect it makes everything we endure here worth it. But perhaps what's changed most of all is how I see you. People. Souls. Even strangers. We walk around wearing masks, smiling, pretending, hiding our pain. But underneath, each of us carries stories, heartaches, and a deep, aching desire to know that we matter, that we're seen, that we're loved. So if you're watching this, maybe sitting in silence, maybe crying quietly, maybe wondering if your person is still with you, I want you to hear me. You are not alone. Your loved one, they're not gone. They are closer than breath. They walk with you in moments of stillness, whisper to you in dreams, send signs you've dismissed as coincidence. They love you. They're proud of you. And they are waiting, with open arms and light in their eyes, for the moment you'll meet again. But until then, you're here. We are here. And that means there's still work to do. Still love to give. Still people to forgive. Still beauty to notice. Still hearts to hold. This experience didn't make me perfect. It made me present. I still get overwhelmed. I still cry. I still grieve the version of me that died that day on the porch. But now I live with a knowing that steadies me when the world shakes. I've been to the other side. I've touched the face of God. And I came back. Not because I had to, but because you needed to hear this. The love never ends. Not with distance. Not with time. Not with death. So let your heart break open. Let the tears fall. Let the light in. And know, really know, that everything is going to be okay. Not because it's easy, but because you are eternally loved, and love always brings us home. If this story has touched something in your soul, if it has given you even a flicker of hope, I invite you to join me on this journey. Subscribe, share, comment below. Tell me about your loved ones. Tell me your story. Let's hold each other in this space of remembrance and light, because none of us are alone. Not here, not ever.